Hey, what's up and welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk to those of you that own a business, that have a sales team that go and hit appointments with homeowners. If you're here, you're probably a home service business owner trying to scale your business and trying to capitalize on more opportunities with your sales team. And today I want to talk to you, one, about your closing ratio, and then I want to talk to you about the 3 levers that you can pull at any time with your sales team to automatically, I guarantee, increase your closing ratio. First of all, if you don't know what your closing ratio is, then I would highly suggest you figuring out what type of tools, tech, or spreadsheet or something so that you can accurately track that metric, because it is a huge indicator of how good your sales team is and how much money they are blowing of your ad budget. So get that figured out. Now, I will say, if you're in home services, doing appointments, running marketing dollars through Angie's List, Home Advisor, or Meta, or Google, or whatever, and your team is going to a homeowner's house to give them some type of sales presentation, drop off some type of bid, quote, or estimate, and then generate some revenue from that appointment, again, across the board with home services, you're probably in the range of 20% to 30%, maybe a little bit above 30%, maybe a little bit below 20. If you are below 20%, then by God, figure out a way to pause this video and click on the link in the description notes below, because you need help and you are burning your advertising dollars to the ground. If you're in between 20 and 30%, cool. Pat yourself on the back, you are average. If you're doing better than 30%, really not all that impressive, but at least you're doing a little bit better than like industry standards. Now, like I mentioned, there are 3 levers that you can pull to increase your closing ratio. But real quickly, let me give you a quick demonstration of exactly where your closing ratio really comes from and why there are 3 levers that you can pull. If you took this pie chart and this represented 100% of all of the homeowners, all the customers that your sales team is going to present to, you can take this pie chart and divide it into 3 sections. One section is going to represent about 20% of all of the homeowners and people that your team talk to, and there will be another section that would equal about 20% of all the homeowners and customers that you could talk to, which means that the 3rd section of this pie chart is going to represent about 60% of all of the appointments and all of the homeowners that your team is going to talk to. The reason why this ties into your closing ratio is because this 20% of the people that your people talk to, again, on average, no matter what, it doesn't really matter how low your prices are, how good looking your team is, what type of incentives you have, nothing really matters. These people are sincerely and always going to tell you no, which leaves the other section of this 20% of customers that you talk to are always going to be laydowns. They're going to tell your team yes. And again, it doesn't really matter how ugly your people are, or how clean their trucks are, or uniforms are, or how high your prices are, or low your prices are. These customers are making a quick decision. They're looking to solve a problem no matter what the average ticket looks like, and they're just going to say yes. Unfortunately, for most of you guys, this is where most of your revenue comes from. Your sales team's commissions and paychecks are all coming from the laydowns and the people that, again, statistically across the board are just gonna say yes to literally whoever shows up on their doorstep. That's why I mentioned if you're closing less than 20%, you definitely need some help, because you're still not even capturing statistically the 20% of people that are already saying yes. And of course, if you're already at 30% or a little bit above, that means that your team is at least a little bit skilled, or they're using pricing incentives to capture a little sliver of this 60%. Now, this other 60% right here of the pie chart, representing 60% of all of the people that your people talk to, these people are what I call the maybes. These people are on the fence, they're comparing quotes, they're kind of shopping around, they're not in an immediate, decision-making stage, they're just kind of maybes. To the extent that your team is trained up on, or prepared, or skilled on those 3 things that I am now going to show you, will be the extent to how much your closing ratio can grow. As I previously mentioned, there are 3 different levers that you can pull. The first lever or skill set that you can instill with your team is going to be objection handling. This is at the end of the sale when there's a proposal on the dinner table and you're trying to get the business and your customers are saying, I need to think about it, or I got to talk to my spouse, or we found a cheaper bid somewhere else, or I might do this myself, or I need time to think about it. Whatever those types of objections are, your team absolutely can increase their closing ratio and capture more of these maybes if they're prepared for those objections. Now, if you're looking for any type of tool, I would highly suggest grabbing a deck of cash cards so that you have a tool with your team. I would say get a deck for everybody on your team, but if you want to be a cheapie, I guess you can make everybody share. Essentially what this is, it's my best selling objection and closing tool because it's a deck of cards and there's 50 cards inside with 50 objections and 50 proven responses that I know will work for you no matter what. All your team has to do is actually role play with these, and I promise it will help increase the closing ratio that you guys have. In addition to helping your team handle objections and close more deals to capture more of that 60% of those maybes, the second lever that you can pull, or second skill that your team can get better at, is going to be follow-up. This is the art of staying in front of a customer after they leave the house. Now, I have recorded another video on this because it is an important piece of your business, and I'll be honest with you, 99% of technicians and salespeople that go out to these sales appointments absolutely suck at proper follow-up and literally are flushing money down the drain on a daily basis. So if your team could get better at follow-up, they don't even have to necessarily become better at objection handling inside the home, as long as after the sales process, they can stay engaged and they can follow up with those customers. I'll link another video somewhere around here so that you can check that out to give yourself a couple of decent ideas on how to follow up. In addition to handling objections and having a little bit better staying power after they leave with some good follow-up, the third lever or skill that your team can help develop is what I would call their ability to rock a sales presentation. Being able to demonstrate and articulate and communicate the value and the urgency that you truly provide to that customer whilst solving their problem will be the extent to how many of these 60% of customers that are maybes turn into yeses. Of course, I will say, being in the sales coaching and training space for over a decade, the least likely skill or lever that you're probably going to pull with your team is going to be the way that they present your products and services to homeowners. There are a ton of really advanced details and nuances and psychological things that go into mastering the art of your pitch. However, if you did spend time on a daily basis, or at least a couple times a week with your team working on that sales presentation, then ultimately what you're going to end up doing is reducing the number of objections that your team is going to be prepared for. Because after all, what an objection is it's a thing that pops up in the absence of value because your team failed to do a good job of presenting the value and the urgency of what you can provide that customer. And so your team can either A, get really good at handling objections, they can also get really good at proper, consistent, and persistent follow-up, or they can do a really good job of presenting that product and helping thereby eliminate some of those objections. However, the point that I really want to make is if you're trying to get from, say, 20% to 30%, the lever I would absolutely recommend pulling is going to be objection handling, because it's important and is going to have the most immediate effect on your people's closing ratio. If right now you're at 30% closing ratio, looking to go to something like 40, I would 100% recommend focusing on follow-up, the presence of being present with your customer after you leave the sale. And if you are looking to go from, say, 40% over to 50% or more, I would highly recommend working on the sales presentation with your team. Now, of course, if you haven't put attention on any one of these things, I would highly recommend doing all three and putting together months and months long of a curriculum of daily training that helps develop these skills with your team. Because after all, hey, if you're getting any value from this video or any of my other content and it's helping you grow your sales and make more money, then now would be a good time to hit the subscribe button below so you never miss out on any future content and can continue building your business. A lot of you guys doing appointments, number one, you're spending a whole lot of money on ads. Two, you're actually sending a team out there and wasting their time if they're not closing. And three, your average ticket is probably north of at least $5,000. Some of you guys have average tickets of 15 grand, 25 grand, 50 grand. And of course, those of you that are doing commercial appointments, average ticket could be 100K. So the point that I'm trying to make is that there are 3 opportunities that you can work on with your team. And of course, if you don't want to spend the time doing that and you want an expert to pop in and do all of this for you, well, that's what I do. All you'd have to do is go to the description notes below, click the link, book a call with my team. We'll be happy to give you that information. But at the very least is think about your closing ratio. Think about which one of these levers you want to pull with your team and then literally put together a plan. So even if you don't do this with us or somebody else, at least you could do it with yourself and you can start role playing with your team. You can start working on follow-up with your team. You can start working on the presentation that your team actually does with customers. If any of this helped you, let me know, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Hey, it's Jordan Stupar. Thanks so much for watching my content. If you enjoyed it, now would be a good time as well to hit the subscribe button so that you never miss a beat. And by the way, if you're truly interested in taking your team, your sales, and revenue to $10 million and beyond, then I would encourage you to hit the link in the description so that you can chat with us. We're looking for a couple more businesses here in 2025 where we can help double your sales and take you to $10 million a year. We do a whole lot more than just YouTube, and I would love to connect with other ambitious, growth-oriented entrepreneurs like yourself. If nothing else, I'll see you in the next video.